Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some really fascinating aspects of food security today, especially, those details that you might not always hear about. We'll be focusing on ASEAN
Oh, okay.
and Indonesia in particular. I know you probably already follow all this closely, but
Yeah.
we're hoping to dig up a few things that might even surprise you.
Sounds good. Like, I don't know, like exploring somewhere but still finding something new.
Yeah, exactly. So let's zoom out first to like the global picture, right?
Yeah.
When we look at the FAO statistical yearbook for 24. And then there's also the food security update. It's kind of weird actually. Like global food production is up overall,
Yeah.
but at the same time we're seeing fertilizer prices going up. New hunger hotspots are popping up too,
Yeah.
and undernourishment. I mean, it's still a problem.
Right. Yeah, it shows you it's not so simple, the global food system. Like, okay, more food, but that doesn't mean everyone can afford it.
Yes.
Or, even get the fertilizer prices are a really good example. The World Bank, they're saying the overall index is going down. But then you have specific fertilizers like DAP. That one's actually going up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And DAP. I mean, thinking about your work with Indonesian farmers,
Yeah.
how's that going to hit them?
Well, it's definitely a worry. Indonesia imports a lot of fertilizer, and DAP is, essential. Rice, corn, all the big ones. So this price going up, that's going to cut into profits. Could even affect how much they can grow, which ultimately could mean higher prices for people buying food. It's a big deal. I mean, the government, they even stopped some of those big infrastructure projects to focus on this.
Yeah, that Jakarta Post article really showed how serious they're taking it.
Tough choice.
Really.
Oh, for sure. And those choices, they affect everything else, too. There's this report, the State of Food and Agriculture 2024. It's got a good way of thinking about this. Like, there's different types of what they call agri-food systems.
Ju-
Traditional, industrial, the whole range. But each one's got these hidden costs,
Yeah.
environment, society, all that.
Yeah, the hidden costs. People don't always think about those.
Right.
So, like in ASEAN, you have all these different systems, right?
Yeah.
How would those costs, play out differently?
Good question. So let's take, for example, what they call the protracted crisis system. Sadly, a few ASEAN countries are in this category. Conflict, political instability, or just constant disasters. And that doesn't just disrupt growing food, it creates this cycle. Poverty, food insecurity, all of it. And the costs, especially social and economic costs, for those countries, they're way higher.
That makes me think of like how vulnerable Indonesia is. Volcanoes, earthquakes, right? Could that push them closer to that crisis category?
Yeah, it's a risk, definitely. They've gotten better, more resilient in recent years. But a big disaster, it could really mess up the supply chains. And then they'd need more imports, which could make food expensive or hard to get for some people.
It really shows, I mean, it's not enough just to grow enough food.
No.
It has to be affordable,
Yeah.
and people need access, even when, like, bad stuff happens.
Exactly.
And, of course, talking about vulnerability, we have to think about the kids. Child malnutrition in the region, I mean, that's a big problem. The Breaking the Cycle report, it's from World Vision. It doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, it's really clear about how bad stunting and wasting are for kids, especially girls. And it's not just, physically.
Right? It affects how their brains develop, how much education they can get, even how much money they can make later. It's like poverty keeps repeating itself.
Exactly. The report, it has this one story, from Myanmar. It's heartbreaking, really shows how this all happens.
Yeah, her family's so poor she had to work instead of going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just her story, sadly. The report says stunted girls, they get married and have kids younger, so the cycle just keeps going.
Right.
And then on top of all that, we've got these climate shocks happening more and more, like El Nino. The report talks about this girl, Zozina Jose, in Mozambique. She had to leave school because of, hunger from that.
Oh, wow.
It just shows how these things are all connected. Climate change, poverty, not enough food, and then education. It's like one big knot.
It really is. And that's why it's so important to think about the real cost of our food choices. That's something the State of Food and Agriculture report really pushes true cost accounting.
Okay, break that down for me. True cost accounting, what does that actually mean?
Well, it means looking beyond the price tag, like when you buy food, it has a price.
Right.
But there's also the environmental cost, the social cost, the health cost, the economic cost, all these things that go into producing it, distributing it, and even us eating it. Like, think about deforestation to make more farmland, or all the health problems from eating processed foods.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about all that when you're just trying to, feed your family.
Exactly. But understanding those costs, that's how we can make better choices, about how we grow food, how we eat, both individually and, like, as a society.
So, thinking about true cost accounting, are there any of those hidden costs that really stand out to you, especially in ASEAN, like Indonesia specifically?
One that comes to mind is all these processed foods people are eating now. And, all the diseases that come with that, heart disease, diabetes, all that. The FAO yearbook, the 2024 one, it shows way more vegetable oil being produced and traded. And vegetable oil, it's in everything processed. Now, vegetable oil by itself, it's not bad. But in all that processed food, it changes what people eat, and that's what causes problems.
So it's like a hidden health cost built right into our food system.
Exactly. And this is a big deal in Indonesia. People are making more money, moving to cities, and their diets are changing. They're eating less of the traditional foods and more of these processed, easy foods. And that has, unintended consequences.
It's like, more money doesn't always mean being healthier.
Right.
And those hidden costs, they're not just health, are they?
Oh, no, not at all. Think about child malnutrition. There are studies showing how much money is lost because of stunting and wasting. Productivity goes down, healthcare costs go up, and the whole economy suffers.
And that cost is probably even worse in ASEAN, right? With, child malnutrition still being a problem. It's like investing in kids' health, it's not just the right thing to do, it's good for the economy too.
Exactly. And it all comes back to, understanding the true cost of our food. When we see those hidden costs, we can make smarter decisions about building food systems that are sustainable and fair.
It feels like we're just getting started here. So much to think about when it comes to food security in ASEAN.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's complicated, right?
For sure. But, even with the challenges, there's so much potential for doing things differently, for making things better.
It feels like we're just starting to see, like, how tangled up everything is. But I'm curious, out of all this, was there anything that really stood out to you? Like maybe something even you found surprising?
What really hit me was how they talk about these hidden costs being spread out, It's not just that they exist, it's who they hit the hardest. Like the report says in a lot of those crisis systems, it's the people who can least afford it, they get hit the worst. Small farmers, rural communities, women, kids.
That's a really good point. It makes me think of the work they're doing in Indonesia, trying to help women farmers, make them more resilient, especially with the climate changing. Do you see a connection there with these hidden costs?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if women farmers don't have the resources or technology, even just basic education, they can't adapt as well. Like when the climate changes or prices go crazy, they get hit harder. And those limitations, they become hidden costs, both for them and everyone around them.
So helping women in agriculture, it's not just about being fair, it's also about making the whole food system stronger.
Exactly. And that brings us back to, okay, what can we actually do about all this? This State of Food and Agriculture report, it talks about some things that could help, like changing how farm subsidies work, maybe some tax reforms, and making businesses be more transparent.
Those sound like pretty big changes. Like how would that work in ASEAN, especially Indonesia, with their own unique situation?
Well, there's no magic answer that works everywhere. Each country needs to figure out what fits them best. But this report has some good ideas. Like with subsidies, instead of supporting stuff that hurts the environment, maybe support things that are better, like, sustainable farming, agroforestry, things that work with the climate.
Yeah, Indonesia, they have a lot of potential for that kind of agriculture. So many different ecosystems, plus their traditional knowledge.
Right. And then with taxes, you could make it cheaper to buy healthy, sustainable food, like lower taxes on fresh produce. And then maybe raise taxes on processed foods, sugary drinks, that kind of thing.
So like using taxes to encourage people to eat better? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's an option. And then there's the transparency thing. The report, it says businesses should have to report on how their operations affect the environment and society, especially the ones involved in food.
So we can actually see all those hidden costs that get buried, in the whole process of getting food to us.
Exactly. And when consumers have that information, they can make better choices too. They can see the real cost of what they're buying.
It's like shining a light on those hidden corners, seeing the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. And that transparency, that's what can really drive change, on a bigger scale.
But honestly, knowing how politics works in some Asian countries, do you think they'll actually be able to make these big changes?
That's the big question, isn't it? Change is hard, especially when you're talking about systems that have been around for a long time and people who benefit from them. But I think even the people in charge, they're starting to see that we can't keep going like this.
I mean, with climate change getting worse, food prices going up, kids still not getting enough to eat, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah, the urgency is definitely there. And there are some good signs, like Indonesia said they want to reduce deforestation and make palm oil production more sustainable. That's a big step in the right direction.
It feels like people are starting to understand development can't just be about money. It has to be sustainable. It has to be fair.
Absolutely. And that's where this idea of true cost accounting, it can really help make better policies.
By showing us, the consequences of what we do and pushing us to find solutions that work for everyone.
Right. It's not about just growing more food. It's about growing it in a way that's fair, equitable, and sustainable for everyone.
It seems like the big takeaway from all this is everything is connected. Fertilizer prices on one side of the world, child malnutrition on the other, businesses hiding costs, women struggling to farm. It all ties together.
It really shows you food security, it's not just one country's problem. It's a global thing. We all got to work together, find new solutions.
So as we wrap up, with all this in mind, what do you think is the most important takeaway for someone like you working on food security, especially in ASEAN?
I'd say the biggest thing is you got to look at the whole picture. You can't just focus on one part of it. Climate change, poverty, gender, even what people choose to eat, it all matters. We can't just think about growing more. It's got to be about access, affordability, making it last, all of that.
It's like we can't just obsess over how much food we grow.
Yeah.
We got to understand the whole system, how it affects people, the environment, everything.
Right, and it takes everyone working together. Governments, NGOs, but also businesses, researchers, even just regular people buying food. We all have a part.
It sounds kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
It is a big challenge for sure. But I'm hopeful people are starting to see how everything's connected, and we've got more data, more new ideas than ever. I think we can make a difference. We can create a future where everyone has enough to eat.
Well said. I think that's a great place to leave it. Cautious but hopeful. We know it's tough, but we can change things. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. And until next time, keep thinking about all this, and we'll see you again soon.